Leonard Collins sits alone in his living room. The droning hum of the old floor lamp and the relentless downpour outside are his only companions. It's well past midnight, and the windows rattle every time the wind hurls itself against them. His gaze flicks over the spreadsheets on his laptop screen, but none of the numbers register. His mind has been drifting for weeks now, tangled in deadlines and unspoken anxieties about his marriage. Suddenly, the doorbell rings. It's not a gentle chime, but a desperate, continuous press that clangs through the house. Heart pounding, Leonard rushes to the front door. As soon as he cracks it open, a gust of cold wind and a barrage of rain spit inside. Standing there, drenched and shaking, is Rebecca, his 24-year-old daughter. Her once elegant blue dress is wrinkled and soaked, clinging to her like a second skin. Her mascara has run down her cheeks, mixing with tears she can't contain. "Rebecca?" Leonard's voice comes out sharper than intended. "Honey, what on earth are you doing out in this storm?" Rebecca staggers forward, hugging her arms. "Dad, I had nowhere else to go. Brandon kicked me out." Leonard's eyes widen. Brandon Thompson, Rebecca's husband, has always been polite if a bit aloof, but kicking her out into the middle of a fierce storm? Leonard ushers his daughter inside, where she collapses onto the sofa, shivering uncontrollably. He quickly grabs an old flannel blanket from the hall closet. "What happened?" he asks, draping the blanket around her shoulders. Rainwater drips from her hair onto the living room carpet. Rebecca presses her lips together and closes her eyes as if bracing for impact. I messed up, Dad. I made a mistake." She exhales, voice trembling. "I cheated on him." Leonard's hand, which had been resting on her shoulder, goes rigid. He feels a hot jolt of disbelief, then anger like an electric current snapping through him. "Cheated?" Before Rebecca can respond, footsteps thud on the stairs. Scarlett Collins, Leonard's wife, stands at the edge of the living room, dressed in a pink satin robe. Her eyes are filled with concern, yet there's something off, a hint of tension Leonard can't quite place. She glances from her husband to her daughter, then at the door still ajar with rain blowing in. "Rebecca," Scarlett says, crossing to them. "My goodness, what happened? You're drenched." Rebecca looks at her mother but offers no immediate explanation. Instead, she tilts her face toward Leonard and confesses in a broken whisper, "I had an affair. It wasn't just a one-time thing. Brandon caught me tonight and he told me to leave. He practically threw my suitcase out the door." Leonard shakes his head slowly, fighting a swell of conflicting emotions: protectiveness of his daughter, revulsion at the act of betrayal, and a creeping sense of dread. "Rebecca," he says gently but firmly, "why would you do this?" Her cheeks blaze red. "Dad, I don't know. I felt ignored at home. And," she swallows, wiping fresh tears. "Most men cheat sooner or later, right? Brandon was probably doing the same behind my back." Leonard stares at her, caught between paternal love and moral outrage. "Rebecca, that's not how a marriage works. You don't get a free pass to betray someone just because you suspect—" He's interrupted by a high-pitched ping from Scarlett's phone. She snatches it off the coffee table. For a moment, Leonard swears he sees panic flash across her face, but she quickly dismisses whatever notification it was. Rebecca buries her face in her hands. "I want you to talk to Brandon, Dad. Maybe if you say it was a mistake, maybe he'll let me come home." Leonard exhales a long, trembling breath. "I'm not sure it's my place to fix this. Cheating isn't just a silly mistake, it's—" He rises to his feet, fists clenched. "Rebecca, your mother and I—" He stops, noticing Scarlett fidget with her phone again, as if waiting for a text. A strange chill creeps up his spine. He glances at his wife. "Scarlett, you've been awfully quiet." Scarlet eyes dart from Leonard to Rebecca, then back. This is a shock, Len. Our daughter is drenched and crying in the middle of the night. Of course I'm worried." His gaze narrows. Worried? Yes. Shocked? The tension in the room crackles like static. He's known Scarlett for 3 decades and can read her subtle cues tonight. They scream of unease. Rebecca straightens under the blanket. "Mom, can you help me talk to Dad? I need him to smooth things over with Brandon." Before Scarlett can reply, Leonard takes a half-step back. "I'll do what I can," he says, though his voice sounds hollow. "But I won't defend your actions, Rebecca. Cheating is something I can't. He stops himself, remembering that fleeting look on Scarlett's face. It suddenly clicks. The phone, the messages, her unusual distance these past months. "Scarlett," Leonard says quietly, turning to her. "Is there something you'd like to tell me?" She blinks, feigning confusion. "Leonard, what are you talking about?" His jaw tightens and thunder rumbles outside, making the windows shake. "I asked if you have anything to say." Scarlett's eyes flick to her phone. Rain continues hammering the roof. Rebecca stares at both parents, bewildered, her own crisis momentarily forgotten. The hush that falls over the living room is deafening, like the tension of a far-off storm about to unleash its full force. "Lenai," Scarlett begins, voice uncertain, but no explanation comes. Only silence and the roar of the rain. Approx 700 words. Soft daylight struggles through the gray sky as Leonard sits at the kitchen table, an untouched cup of coffee turning cold. He's been awake for hours, playing and replaying last night's revelations in his head. Rebecca, wrapped in a robe borrowed from her mother, sleeps fitfully on the living room couch. Scarlett is upstairs, presumably showering or just avoiding him altogether. Leonard rubs his temples. The storm outside has dwindled to a light drizzle, tapping at the windows. He notices the house feels unusually quiet, which only amplifies his uneasy thoughts. A shuffle of feet draws his attention. Rebecca appears at the kitchen threshold, her eyes puffy and her hair pulled into a messy bun. She looks drained, as if her energy was washed away in last night's downpour. "Dad," she murmurs, sitting across from him. "I know I messed up." Leonard nods but doesn't meet her gaze right away. "You did," he replies softly. "But I'm trying to understand why." Rebecca presses her lips together. "It's complicated. Brandon works all the time, and when he's home, he's glued to his phone or the TV. I felt invisible." She hesitates. "I know it's not an excuse, but at some point I started talking to someone else, someone who paid attention." Her words hang in the air. Leonard remembers that feeling of betrayal from last night, and a flicker of disappointment tinged with pity stirs inside him. "Rebecca, marriage means facing rough patches, not running off to—" He stops, unsure if he's echoing his own convictions or something else. There's a long pause. Finally, he notices the worry lines around her eyes. "I'll talk to Brandon if that's what you really want," Leonard says, voice heavy. "But I don't promise miracles." She nods, swallowing hard. "Dad, thank you. I'm sorry." Before either can say more, Scarlett's footsteps sound from the hallway. She appears in a simple blouse and jeans, hair still damp. Leonard watches her quietly. She avoids eye contact, busying herself at the countertop to pour coffee into a mug. "I'll drop you home on my way to the college," Scarlett says to Rebecca, stirring sugar into her coffee. "We can figure out your living arrangements later." Leonard clears his throat. "Actually, I'd like to talk to Rebecca a bit more." Scarlett casts him a quick glance. "All right, but we shouldn't keep Brandon waiting too long. He might cool down." Her tone wavers, as if she's forcing calm. Rebecca stands, pushing her chair back. "I'm gonna go change," she says, stepping out of the kitchen. That leaves Leonard and Scarlett alone. The rain picks up again, a soft hiss against the windows. He can't hold it in any longer. "Scarlett," he murmurs, "last night when Rebecca was talking, you seemed so distant. And that text message on your phone." She tenses. "A text from my friend, nothing important." "Which friend?" She sets her mug down with a little too much force. "Does it matter? Don't start accusing me of things." Leonard sighs, trying to remain steady. "I'm not accusing. I'm confused. You've been secretive lately. Are you hiding something about yourself or us?" For a second, something akin to guilt flits across her face, but she presses her lips into a thin line. "Leonard, I understand you're upset, but focusing on me isn't fair. Our daughter just admitted she's been unfaithful. Let's not shift blame." A flicker of anger snaps through him. "Shift blame? I'm just noticing how you barely reacted to the news. You didn't even scold her, as if you—" He stops himself, the implication too painful to voice. Scarlett grabs her coffee and turns on her heel. "I'm going to get dressed," she says curtly. "I don't need this right now." Leonard watches her go, an uneasy weight pressing on his chest. On the kitchen counter, her phone lies face down. For the briefest moment, he considers reaching over, flipping it, seeing whatever secrets might be locked behind the screen. But he doesn't. Instead, he picks up his own cold coffee and dumps it in the sink. As it swirls down the drain, a creeping dread gnaws at him. Rebecca's betrayal might be just the tip of an iceberg that threatens to tear his entire family apart. Late that afternoon, the house is eerily still. Rebecca has gone off with Scarlett, presumably to check in on Brandon. Christopher, Leonard's son, is out of town visiting friends, oblivious to the storm brewing at home. Leonard stands alone in the kitchen, staring at the remnants of a half-eaten sandwich on a plate. He's not really hungry, just restless. Footsteps echo in the hallway. Scarlett returns, setting down her purse on the table. Without a word, she crosses the kitchen and flicks on the overhead light. The sudden brightness makes Leonard squint. "How did it go with Brandon?" he asks, though his heart's not fully in the question. Scarlett drapes her coat over a chair. He was furious, of course, but he said he'd talk to Rebecca again, maybe after he cools off. She's staying at a friend's place tonight. Leonard nods, tension coiling in his gut. He wants to ask if Brandon mentioned lawyers or separation, but he's weighed down by another suspicion, one that's consumed him since last night. "Scarlett," he says, voice low, "we have to talk, not about Rebecca, but about you. I need an honest answer." She turns, her expression wary. "Leonard, we've been through this. Can't you see I'm exhausted?" A bitter laugh escapes him. "Exhausted. Right. Our daughter's marriage might be falling apart, and I'm worried ours is too." He steps closer, searching her eyes. "Are you—" He hesitates, feeling his pulse hammer. "Are you having an affair?" Scarlett stiffens, face flushing. "That's ridiculous." Her immediate denial pricks at him, but he refuses to back down. "Rebecca hinted you weren't perfect either. She made it sound like she knew something." A tense silence extends. Then Scarlett draws a sharp breath. "Leonard, let's not blow things out of proportion." He slams a hand on the counter. "Out of proportion? I'm not blind, Scarlett. Your phone's constantly buzzing. You act like you're on edge, and you barely blinked when Rebecca confessed. People who haven't cheated usually have a stronger reaction than that." She flinches, eyes darting toward the living room. Her voice tightens. "Stop. You're hurting me with these accusations." But Leonard sees it, the way she avoids his gaze, that flicker of alarm crossing her features. "Just say it," he demands, heart pounding. "Admit you've been meeting someone else." Scarlett closes her eyes, tears threatening to spill. When she finally speaks, her tone is flat. "All right, yes, there is someone. It's not what you think." Leonard's breath hitches in his throat. He tries to calm himself, but a rush of anger, betrayal, and heartbreak surges. "Not what I think? Then what is it?" She sets her jaw. "His name is Grant Miller. We met years ago at an annual educators conference. He was just a friend at first." Her words tumble out, each one cutting deeper into Leonard's chest. It turned into something more. It was never meant to be serious, just— She stops, voice trembling. Leonard's mind races. How many times? How long? He glances at her phone lying in plain sight. "Don't. Spare me the details," he hisses. "Just tell me how long you've been lying." A tear spills down Scarlett's cheek. 27 years off and on, only during the conference weekends. She covers her mouth, choking on sobs. Leonard steps back, stomach roiling. The truth feels like acid in his veins. 27 years, that's more than half their marriage. The magnitude of it crushes him, swirling in his brain and pounding in his ears. For a fleeting moment, he recalls their younger days raising Christopher and Rebecca, building a life he thought was solid. He clenches his teeth, a surge of raw fury threatening to explode. "Get out," he whispers, voice rasping. Scarlett looks up, eyes full of regret. "Leonard, listen." He snatches the plate from the counter and hurls it at the sink. It shatters with a piercing clang. "I said, get out!" he roars, tears pricking at his own eyes. "Or rather, I will, because I can't stay under the same roof. Not anymore." Scarlett stands frozen, shock coloring her face. "Where will you go? What about the kids?" He closes his eyes, inhaling sharply to keep his composure. "Rebecca is already out of the house, and Christopher is grown. You can explain to them why I left. His throat tightens. Tell them the truth, if you have the courage. Scarlett tries to approach him, but Leonard holds up a trembling hand. Don't touch me. The finality in his voice weighs heavy in the room. Without another word, he storms upstairs, slamming the bedroom door. Scarlett remains in the kitchen, tears rolling down her cheeks. She looks at the shattered plate, the cracks fanning out like the broken pieces of their life. Leonard can't recall packing his suitcase so fast. In under an hour, he's managed to stuff shirts, pants, and his laptop into a worn black bag. Every movement is robotic. Emotions swirl in his mind, but he pushes them aside, focusing on each item to quell the chaos. Downstairs, the atmosphere is suffocating. Scarlett hovers near the base of the steps, eyes redrimmed and pleading, but she keeps her distance. The tension is thick enough to slice with a kitchen knife. "Leonard," she says quietly, "I know you're furious and you have every right to be, but let's talk this through. We've built 30 years together." He grips the banister, pausing on the last step. "We had 30 years, yes, but apparently you've been sharing part of that with someone else for almost as long." His tone is cold as winter air. "I'm done, Scarlett. I'll have a lawyer draw up the papers." She swallows, glancing away. Rebecca and Christopher, they'll be devastated. Leonard's jaw tightens. Rebecca's dealing with her own mess right now, and Christopher is old enough to handle the truth. I'm not lying to them. I can't fix this. It's not a one-time betrayal. Silence. Scarlett stares at him with trembling hands, but he can't bring himself to look at her face for more than a second. The person he thought he knew, devoted wife and mother, feels suddenly like a stranger. With a heavy exhale, Leonard brushes past her and steps onto the front porch. Outside, the sky has cleared into a stark midday sun, an uncomfortable contrast to last night's storm. He hears Scarlett's soft sob from behind him, but he doesn't turn back. His car, a silver sedan, waits in the driveway. Usually he'd glance back at the house, a reflex when leaving for a business trip or errand, but not now. He tosses his suitcase in the trunk. The engine roars to life, providing a cruel sense of finality. Scarlett steps onto the porch, tears glistening on her cheeks. "Leonard, please." He rolls the window down slightly, words escaping in a trembling hush. "Don't call me unless it's about the divorce, or the kids. I can't be near you right now." Her lips part, but nothing comes. As if she's run out of ways to plead. Leonard backs out of the driveway. When he checks the rearview mirror, he sees Scarlett standing there, one hand over her mouth, shoulders shaking with silent sobs. A pang of regret flickers in his chest, but he steels himself. Some betrayals are too deep to forgive. 15 minutes later, he's on the highway, driving aimlessly. A motel sign flashes in the distance. Moonrise Motel vacancy. It's cheap, not exactly somewhere he'd like to stay long-term, but he needs a bed and some privacy to process this disaster. He pulls into the gravel lot, checks in with a bored-looking clerk who doesn't bother to hide her gum-chewing habit. She hands him a key to room 208, second floor. Inside, the room smells faintly of cleaning chemicals and stale coffee. The floral bedspread is faded, the walls adorned with generic paintings of countryside landscapes. Leonard locks the door behind him, sets his suitcase down, and drops onto the bed, arms splayed. Only then does the full weight of what happened strike him. He tries calling Christopher first, but it goes straight to voicemail. He hangs up. Maybe it's better he explains in person. He ends up calling a longtime friend, Alex Johnson, who also happens to be an attorney. Alex picks up, sounding cheerful at first. The moment he hears Leonard's dull, broken voice, that cheer vanishes. "I need your help," Leonard says flatly. "I'm leaving Scarlett. It's complicated." He recounts in clipped phrases how the marriage is over an affair spanning decades. Alex doesn't interrupt, just listens. When Leonard finishes, Alex clears his throat. "Leonard, I'll represent you if that's what you want. But are you sure there's no chance of—" Leonard closes his eyes, recalling the bitterness, the shattered plate in the sink. "No, it's not salvageable." Alex sighs. "Okay, buddy. I'll start paperwork. We'll meet tomorrow to go over details. You need a place to stay for a while? Because that motel you're at—" Leonard forces a laugh, a hollow sound. "I'll manage." "Thanks, Alex." They say goodbye. Leonard remains on the bed, phone pressed against his chest. The sinking feeling only intensifies. Memories swirl, Scarlett teaching the kids to ride bikes, family dinners at the lakeside, holiday gatherings full of laughter. All overshadowed now by the stark revelation that she had a parallel life with another man named Grant Miller. He drags himself to his feet and gazes out the window. Cars rush past, indifferent. The faint hum of neon lights from the motel sign flickers. Everything looks bleak. Yet a small corner of his mind flickers with cold resolve. He has to keep going, for his own sanity and for his children. The life he knew is gone. But maybe, just maybe, he can build something else out of the wreckage. Leonard Collins woke up to the thin beams of daylight slipping through the yellowed motel curtains. His back ached. He'd slept on a mattress that felt more like a slab of concrete, complete with squeaky springs that jostled every time he turned. The digital clock on the nightstand blinked 7:53 a.m. in glaring red. He had checked in late last night, exhausted from the emotional hurricane he left behind at home. Now, in the sober light of morning, the reality of his situation clawed at him. His 30-year marriage in shambles, his daughter's marriage at risk, and the stale odor of bleach and musty carpet filling his lungs. Leonard sat up, running a hand across his face. A half-empty styrofoam cup of lukewarm coffee sat on the nightstand. He had no appetite, but his mouth felt like sandpaper. He grimaced, took a tentative sip, and then set it aside. An unfamiliar ringtone broke the silence. He fished his phone out from under a wrinkled dress shirt. The screen read, "Christopher." "Dad?" came his son's voice, echoing through the cheap motel walls. "Yeah, Chris," Leonard replied softly. "Morning." "Where are you?" Christopher asked, concern tinged in every syllable. "Mom called me, said you left. She wouldn't say why." Leonard pinched the bridge of his nose, feeling the swirl of anger, betrayal, and sadness all over again. "I'm staying at a motel for a while. Something happened with your mom. We need some space." He purposely avoided mentioning Scarlett's affair. The notion of explaining it now, over the phone, was too big a weight to carry. Christopher's voice dipped. "Is there anything I can do? You sound awful." "I'll manage," Leonard said, forcing a thin reassurance. "I just need time. How are you holding up?" "I'm okay. I wish I understood what's really going on." Leonard's throat constricted. "I'll tell you when I'm ready, all right? Just keep an eye on your sister if you can. She's got her own mess." Christopher sighed, clearly baffled. "Rebecca hasn't returned my calls. Dad, I'm worried about her." At the mention of Rebecca, a pang of guilt and concern struck Leonard. She, too, was floundering in a sea of marital turmoil. "I'll try to reach her. Take care of yourself, Chris." They hung up. Leonard exhaled shakily. Another call buzzed almost immediately. This time, Rebecca. He accepted it, bracing himself. "Dad?" she said in a trembling voice. "I'm sorry I didn't call sooner. Things with Brandon are still bad. He's not sure he wants to talk to me yet. But how about you? Mom told me you left the house." Her tone carried guilt and confusion, as though she felt responsible for the entire meltdown. "I did," Leonard answered, pausing to quell the resentment flaring inside him. "Don't worry about me. Focus on sorting out things with Brandon. If he wants to talk, I'll listen, but I can't promise anything." She hesitated. "I messed up. Everything's falling apart." Leonard's chest felt heavy. "We'll figure it out, but not overnight. Just keep your head on straight, Becky." When the call ended, Leonard pressed his phone to his chest, eyes shutting. The sense of betrayal about Scarlett was still raw, throbbing like an open wound. The motel's silence only made it more deafening in his mind. By mid-morning, he dialed Alex Johnson, his old friend and lawyer. "Leonard, hey," Alex greeted, voice subdued. "I'm drafting up the preliminary divorce papers, but I'll need more details from you. How soon can we meet?" "Tomorrow. I'd like it to be quick, civilized, if possible." "Understood," Alex replied. Then after a pause, "You okay holding up in that dive?" "I can recommend a better place if you need." Leonard surveyed the peeling wallpaper. "Nah, I'll survive. Thanks, Alex." The rest of the day crawled by. Leonard alternated between pacing the narrow room, flipping channels on a fuzzy TV, and half-heartedly scrolling through news apps on his phone. Around dusk, he realized he needed some fresh air. He left the motel for a short drive and ended up at a strip mall a few blocks away. He found a nondescript diner with neon letters flickering above the entrance. Slumping into a corner booth, he ordered a black coffee. It tasted only marginally better than the motel's, but at least the diner had music overhead, a faint oldies tune that stirred memories of simpler days. In a moment of reflection, he pulled out his phone and opened family photos. Christmas mornings with Christopher and Rebecca, beach vacations with Scarlett smiling in her sun hat. The pictures cut him to the core. He shoved the phone back in his pocket, leaving a few dollars on the table before trudging back to his car. That night, he returned to room 208, dropping onto the stiff bed. The lamp's dull light flickered, revealing the chipped paint on the walls. For a moment, he wondered if he'd ever known Scarlett at all. How could she have kept up an affair for almost 3 decades? Sleep offered him no solace. Shadows on the ceiling took strange shapes as he stared upward, mind racing with regrets and half-plans for the future. Eventually, exhaustion overwhelmed him. The last thing he remembered was the faint hum of the motel's air conditioner rattling like broken glass, lulling him into an uneasy doze. The following afternoon found Leonard wandering a large discount supermarket, hoping the mundane task of picking up toiletries might temporarily silence his swirling thoughts. The store bustled with customers looking for bargains, mothers with toddlers, teens racing carts down aisles, and elderly couples bickering over cereal brands. Leonard made his way to the electronics section, searching for a cheap charger since he'd left his phone charger at home in his frantic exit. He was flipping through a rack of generic phone accessories when he noticed a lanky teenage boy trying to disappear behind a display of prepaid phone cards. The teen, who couldn't have been older than 16, glanced around nervously. Leonard watched him slip a phone card into his jacket pocket before paying for a candy bar at the register. Leonard's heart lurched. He didn't exactly feel righteous enough to intervene in someone else's moral failing, especially after what he'd discovered about Scarlett. Still, he knew the boy was making a bad choice. As the kid turned to leave, Leonard stepped forward, clearing his throat. "Hey, son," he said quietly. "You forgot to scan that phone card." The boy froze, panic flashing in his wide eyes. For a second, Leonard feared the kid might bolt. Instead, the teen slowly retrieved the card from his pocket, cheeks burning with shame. "Look," Leonard continued gently. "I'll pay for it if you need it that badly." The teen's gaze flicked around, clearly mortified. "Why would you do that?" Leonard sighed, remembering how a single bad decision could spiral. "Because I've seen what it's like when people go down the wrong path. Sometimes you need a break or a friend." In a stiff, awkward motion, the teen handed over the card. Leonard led him back to the register, added the phone card to his own items, and paid. The cashier, an older woman with glasses perched on her nose, gave them both an appraising look, but said nothing. She dropped the phone card into a paper bag, eyebrows raised in mild disapproval. Once clear of the checkout, Leonard offered the bag. "Here, now tell me, why risk shoplifting a card?" Looking at the floor, the boy mumbled, "My name's Toby. My mom's in the hospital. I got no money to go see her, and my little sister's back at our apartment alone. I just needed to call Mom because we can't visit until next week. Bus fare is too high and everything's just—" His words trailed off, voice cracking. Leonard felt an unexpected pang of empathy. "Hospital, huh? She okay?" Toby gave a half shrug, shifting from foot to foot. "She broke her leg pretty bad, something about a fracture that needs surgery. We're behind on rent, so we're stuck in this nasty place across town. My sister Chloe is only 14 and she's scared." A flicker of paternal instinct flicked through Leonard's chest. He recalled the sense of helplessness he'd felt when his kids were young. "Which hospital?" "Northview General." Leonard nodded. That was the same hospital where he once had routine checkups. He studied Toby's face, exhaustion, worry, fear. It reminded him how quickly life could upend. Maybe Toby's situation was a small chance for Leonard to do something good amidst his own chaos. "I'll drive you there if you want, or at least help you get in touch with your mom." Toby blinked, uncertain. "But you don't even know me." Leonard managed a wry smile. "I don't know a lot these days, but I do know we all need help sometimes. My name's Leonard, by the way." He glanced at the time on his phone. Hospital visiting hours run until 8, right? The teen's posture slumped in relief. Yeah, my sister's home from school by now. I was gonna walk back. It's a long way, but guess I got no choice. If you really mean it. He paused, looking both hopeful and suspicious. Leonard nodded. Let's see if we can figure something out. Could you call your mom and let her know we're coming? Toby swallowed. Sure, thanks. He clutched the paper bag with the phone card, quiet for a moment. Then he added in a soft voice, No one else has offered to help. I appreciate it. Leonard felt a swirl of emotions, gratitude that Toby allowed him to step in, and a subtle sense of purpose returning. Even as his own life was in tatters, maybe he could still be of use to someone else in dire need. Let's get going, then. Outside, the afternoon sun blazed. They headed to Leonard's car, an older sedan he'd once planned to trade in. Toby climbed into the passenger seat with a cautious reverence, as if he'd never been offered a ride by a stranger before. Leonard started the engine, silently wondering if fate had nudged him in Toby's direction as some form of redemption. Or maybe it was just coincidence. Whichever it was, Leonard found himself driving off with a sense of uneasy hope. The boy was a reminder. No matter how broken one's reality seemed, there was always a chance to reconnect, to do good even in the smallest ways. The route to Toby's apartment complex led Leonard into a part of town he rarely saw, a district where shuttered storefronts lined the streets and graffiti sprawled across every free wall. Jagged potholes marred the pavement. The closer they got to the address Toby provided, the more trash and broken glass littered the sidewalks. Eventually, Leonard pulled up in front of a squat, dilapidated building with cracked windows. Faded letters on a battered sign read, Riverview Apartments, though Leonard saw no river, only a murky drainage canal behind a rusted fence. The entire place gave off a stagnant odor of neglect and despair. It's this one, Toby mumbled, unbuckling his seatbelt. They climbed out of the car. A group of teens loitered near the entrance, passing around a cigarette. One of them eyed Leonard's sedan suspiciously. Leonard felt the hairs on his neck prickle. He was decidedly out of his element. The foyer reeked of stale beer and something sour, maybe rotting food. Peeling paint flaked from the walls. A bare light bulb flickered overhead like it was on its last filament. Toby led Leonard up a narrow stairwell, each step echoing ominously. On the second floor, a door with chipped green paint stood partly open. Inside, Chloe, a fragile 14-year-old with timid blue eyes, had barricaded the hallway with a dining chair. When she saw Toby, relief bloomed across her face. "Thank God you're back," she whispered. "There were guys banging on the door earlier, shouting who knows what. I was so scared." She paused upon noticing Leonard, fear flickering in her gaze. "It's okay," Toby said, setting a hand on his sister's shoulder. "He's a friend. Help me out today." Leonard peered into the cramped apartment. A dingy living room opened onto a kitchenette stacked with unwashed dishes. The place was hot, no air conditioning to combat the suffocating warmth. A single overhead fan squeaked as it rotated, doing little more than pushing the stale air around. "Your mom's in the hospital, right?" Leonard asked gently, and Chloe nodded. Her voice quivered. "It's been 2 weeks since she fell through the rotted porch outside. She's had a couple of surgeries." Her eyes welled with tears she was trying hard to hide. "We're behind on everything. The landlord's been threatening to lock us out if we don't pay soon." Leonard felt his chest tighten. This was beyond desperate. "I was planning to take Toby to see your mom," he said, forcing a gentle smile. "And you too, if that's okay. I can't stand the idea of you both here alone, especially if the place isn't safe." Toby glanced at Chloe, who bit her lip uncertainly. "We can't just leave all our stuff," she murmured. "I get it," Leonard said, scanning the tiny living space. "But how about just tonight? Get you out of here, at least to see your mom. Then we'll figure something else out. Trust me, I've got a spare motel room, or well, we'll see." A moment's hesitation passed. Then Chloe nodded. Within 10 minutes, Toby had thrown together a backpack for each of them, some clothes, a few personal items, and the phone card Leonard had purchased. He gently locked the door behind them, though Leonard questioned whether that lock provided any real security in a place like this. Heading back outside, they found the same group of teens still lurking, now eyeing them with silent hostility. Leonard felt a stirring of unease but kept his head high. He ushered Toby and Chloe into the car, relieved when the engine started on the first try. "Thank you," Chloe whispered from the back seat, voice trembling. I can't believe you showed up like this." "Are you sure it's no trouble?" Leonard forced a small, reassuring laugh. "It's more complicated than I'd like, but yeah, it's all right. Let's get you to your mom." He drove carefully, scanning the streets for a safe exit onto the highway toward Northview General Hospital. Passing a few flickering street lamps and run-down storefronts, Leonard couldn't help noticing Toby's worried glances at Chloe, as though he feared losing her in all this chaos. A pang of sympathy washed over him. He recalled the times he protected Rebecca or Christopher from life's harsh edges, never suspecting that one day his own family's foundation would crack as severely as it had. Now, seeing these two siblings in crisis, he felt a compelling need to shield them from further harm. As they left the worst streets behind, an unexpected calm fell in the car. The city lights grew brighter, and Toby rummaged in his backpack, looking for something. "Mr. Collins?" he asked softly. "I hope I can repay you somehow. I don't know how, but—" Leonard shook his head, offering a fatherly glance in the rearview mirror. "Don't worry about it, Toby. Let's focus on your mom first, all right?" No one argued. Outside, the clouds loomed, hinting at another rainstorm by nightfall. But inside Leonard's sedan, for a brief moment, there was a flicker of hope. Northview General Hospital's fluorescent corridors buzzed with subdued urgency. Hushed nurses pushing gurneys, overhead announcements crackling with codes, family members gathered in waiting rooms, eyes clouded with worry. Leonard guided Toby and Chloe through a tangle of hallways until they reached the orthopedic ward. The stark white tiles squeaked underfoot, and the smell of antiseptic stung his nostrils. They found Marina Raymond in a small, curtained section room 227. A cast enveloped her right leg, elevated on a couple of pillows. Despite the hospital gown and the pallor in her cheeks, her gaze lit up the moment she saw her children. "Mom!" Toby rushed forward, carefully hugging the side of the bed. Chloe followed, clutching her mother's free hand. Marina's face broke into a relieved smile. "Toby, Chloe, I was so worried. Did everything go okay at home?" Leonard hovered at the curtain's edge, not wanting to intrude on their reunion. After a flurry of quiet, emotional greetings, Toby hesitantly motioned for him to come closer. "Mom, this is Mr. Collins," Toby introduced in a hushed tone. "He helped us today." Marina turned her gaze to Leonard, eyes scanning his tired expression. "Thank you," she whispered, voice laced with cautious gratitude. "I'm sorry I don't mean to seem ungrateful, but we don't know you. Why would you go out of your way to help my kids?" Leonard hesitated, noticing the protective edge in her posture. She had the look of someone who'd been forced to handle everything on her own, someone who'd learned to be wary. Clearing his throat, he chose his words carefully. "I saw Toby in a difficult spot and recognized he needed a hand. My life's a bit upside down right now, but I can at least do some good for somebody else, that's all." Marina's eyes flickered with suspicion, then relief. She sighed, glancing at her leg in the cast. "They said I'll be here at least another week, maybe more, depending on therapy. I hate that Toby and Chloe are stuck in that awful apartment alone. But we can't afford to move." She trailed off, frustration evident. Chloe reached for her mother's hand. "Mom, it's been scary. There were people banging on our door. Toby tried to stay strong, but you know how bad it gets." Marina swallowed, tears glossing her eyes. "I'm so sorry, baby." Leonard shifted on his feet. A nurse strode by, checking monitors, then left. The beep of a nearby heart monitor pulsed in the background, a reminder of how fragile everything felt. "Look," Leonard began, glancing between mother and children. "I have a place a small cabin to be exact. It's nothing fancy, but it's safe. It's outside the city, a bit more peaceful. It used to be a family retreat before things got complicated. If you and your kids need somewhere to stay while you recover, I'm offering it." Toby and Chloe shot each other startled looks. Marina regarded Leonard with wide eyes. "A cabin? You're serious?" Leonard nodded. "Yeah, until your leg heals and you figure out a new arrangement. My own house is complicated right now, so I'm staying at a motel, but the cabin's empty." Marina looked conflicted, as if suspecting a catch. "I can't pay rent. We're behind on hospital bills as it is." Leonard waved off the concern. "This isn't about money. It's about giving Toby and Chloe a safe place. You can pay me back later, or not at all. It's your call." Silence. Marina's gaze dropped to her cast, then shifted to her children huddled beside her. Slowly, her resistance seemed to melt. I need to think about it," she murmured, voice trembling with relief and doubt. "Take your time," Leonard offered gently, stepping back to give them a moment. "I'll step into the hallway. You three can talk it over." He drew the curtain aside and found himself in the corridor, heart pounding. 1,000 doubts sprang up. Was he truly helping, or just running away from his own problems? But remembering the fear in Chloe's voice and Toby's desperation, he felt a renewed resolve. He wanted to do some good, however small or fleeting. About 5 minutes later, Toby peeked past the curtain. "Mr. Collins? Mom wants to talk to you." Leonard re-entered. Marina's expression was guarded, but a faint glimmer of hope shone in her tired eyes. "If you're serious, yes, please. We'll accept. I can't bear the idea of my kids alone in that apartment. It's not safe." "Then let's arrange it," Leonard replied. "Toby and Chloe can gather their things. I can drive them out there, show them around. Once you're discharged, you can join them if you feel comfortable." Marina exhaled a shaky breath, her guarded posture softening. "I don't know how to thank you," she said. "I'm not used to strangers being so kind." A flicker of self-mockery crossed Leonard's face. "I'm not exactly in a great place either. This might help both of us find some footing." They exchanged phone numbers so the hospital staff could reach Leonard if needed. Marina scribbled her father's name, James Hollis, on a scrap of paper. He lived out of state, but might be able to help with some finances later. Leonard thanked her, tucking it into his wallet for safekeeping. "We'll come back tomorrow," Toby assured his mom, a new spark in his eyes. "No more phone cards, promise." Marina gave him a watery smile. She brushed a lock of Chloe's hair aside and squeezed her hand. "Be safe," she whispered. Leonard watched the tender exchange, a pang in his heart reminding him of Rebecca and Christopher back when they were just kids. He quietly ushered Toby and Chloe out into the corridor. As they walked away, he caught a last glimpse of Marina, eyes shining with cautious relief. Something about the scene steadied Leonard's own turmoil, if only by a fraction. Maybe in helping this wounded family, he could find a measure of his own healing. He wouldn't pretend his life wasn't still in tatters, but for now, it felt right. Leonard Collins parked his sedan in front of the crumbling apartment complex, heart pounding harder than he cared to admit. The late afternoon sun cast a harsh glow over the graffiti-strewn walls, and the air smelled of sour trash in the summer heat. Beside him, Toby unbuckled his seatbelt, glancing nervously through the windshield. In the back, Chloe clutched her worn backpack, face pale with apprehension. "We won't be long," Leonard said, trying to sound reassuring. "We'll get your remaining clothes, maybe a few personal items, then head straight out." Toby nodded and gave Chloe a supportive look. "Just keep close," he murmured. "I'll protect you." They stepped out onto the cracked pavement. The plan was simple. Gather Toby and Chloe's last belongings left behind in the old unit, then load them into Leonard's trunk so they could officially move to the cabin. The building itself loomed, an ugly concrete structure with broken windows patched by cardboard. Leonard's gut twisted. He remembered the uneasy vibe from his last visit. Inside the dim lobby, lights flickered overhead. A sour odor of mildew and stale smoke clung to the air. Leonard spotted a rusted metal bar propping open the stairwell door, presumably to let in a sliver of light. Toby led them up the steps, their footsteps echoing against the walls. On the second-floor landing, an unkempt man in a stained hoodie watched them pass, but said nothing. Chloe tightened her grip on Leonard's arm. The entire place felt like a powder keg. One spark might be all it took. Reaching the old apartment door, Toby slid in a key and carefully pushed the door open. The unit was just as shabby as they remembered, an exposed overhead bulb, peeling paint, and a battered couch. Plastic garbage bags lined the walls, stuffed with some of Toby and Chloe's possessions. "Let's hurry," Leonard whispered, picking up a duffel bag from the couch. "We don't want to draw attention." They had barely begun loading items when footsteps thundered up the hallway. 3 figures, faces hard and cold, appeared at the threshold: a gangly teen with a shaved head, a stocky man with a jagged scar across his cheek, and another wearing a tattered jacket. The tension in the air became suffocating. "Hey!" snarled the scar-faced man, pointing a finger at Leonard. "You with the kids that ran out of here, right?" Leonard's pulse spiked. "We're just picking up their stuff. We'll be gone in a minute." The youngest intruder, the one with the shaved head, stepped forward. He looked at Chloe, sneering. "I thought you vanished, girl. Owe us money, don't you?" Chloe shrank back, trembling. Toby glared at them, fists curling. "We don't owe you anything. Now leave us alone." Scar-faced man snorted. "Wrong. The landlord cut a deal with us to collect, and we've been looking for an easy paycheck." Leonard tried to keep his voice steady. "Look, I don't know any arrangement you had, but these kids are moving out. There's no need for trouble." But trouble was exactly what arrived. The largest man lunged forward, grabbing Chloe by the wrist. A yelp escaped her lips, tears springing to her eyes. Without thinking, Leonard spotted a discarded metal pipe leaning near the couch. He snatched it up and thrust himself between the intruder and Chloe, forcing the man to let go. "Back off," Leonard growled, surprise coursing through him at the fierceness in his own voice. Everything happened in a flash. Shaved head rummaged in his pocket, cursing under his breath. Toby launched at him, throwing a clumsy punch that connected with the man's shoulder. Scar-faced man, eyes blazing, reached into his waistband and yanked out a handgun. Time seemed to slow as Leonard saw the muzzle point in his direction. Pure instinct drove him. He swung the pipe, clipping the gunman's forearm. The weapon fired anyway, a deafening crack that made Chloe scream. Heat seared across Leonard's side as the bullet grazed him. The impact spun him backward, pain exploding in his ribcage. Toby shouted, tackling the scar-faced man around the waist. Another shot went wild, ricocheting off the peeling wall. Chloe cowered behind the couch, sobbing as everything descended into chaos. Leonard, reeling from the pain, tried to regain his footing. His vision blurred momentarily. Blood seeped through the side of his shirt. The largest man aimed a vicious kick at Toby, knocking the teen to the floor. Toby struggled to get up, only to be slammed back down with a brutal punch to the jaw. "Enough!" Leonard shouted, gripping the pipe with shaking hands. His side throbbed with every breath. A sudden shout echoed from the hallway. "Police! Don't move!" Red and blue lights flashed against the dingy walls. Neighbors must have called 911 at the sound of gunfire. Within seconds, uniformed officers stormed inside, weapons drawn, yelling orders. Everything became a blur of adrenaline. The intruders dropped their makeshift weapons. One tossed the gun aside, trying to dash for the window, only to be tackled by an officer. Another cop knelt by Leonard, pressing a hand to his bleeding side. "Sir, stay still," the officer commanded. "Paramedics are on the way." Chloe hurried over, tears streaking her face. Toby lay nearby, breathing hard, lips split and cheeks bruised. He blinked in a daze but managed to crawl closer to Chloe. Leonard sagged in relief, the room spinning. Blood dripped onto the scuffed floor. But somehow, amid the cacophony of shouting officers and wailing sirens, he felt a fragile surge of triumph. He'd protected Toby and Chloe. They were alive. His body, however, had taken a bullet, his vision grayed at the edges. The last thing Leonard heard was Chloe's tremulous voice calling his name just before darkness closed in around him. A shrill beep echoed overhead, mixing with the hum of fluorescent lights. Leonard drifted in and out of consciousness, aware of a chaotic rush around him. The icy chill of metal rails grazed his arm, and a paramedic's urgent words cut through his haze. "Gunshot wound to the right side. Possible fracture bleeding is moderate. Vitals are stable. We're heading to Northview ER." He blinked, vision clearing just enough to see Toby and Chloe in the back of the ambulance, tearful and frightened. A medic guided them out of the cramped vehicle, instructing them to wait in the hallway. Then the door slammed, and the ambulance roared toward the hospital. A few agonizing minutes later, Leonard found himself in a blur of hospital corridors. Gurneys passed, doctors and nurses hustled. Overhead, intercom announcements melded into white noise. He clenched his jaw against the pain hammering in his side. Finally, the paramedics wheeled him into a bright emergency bay, a swirl of medical staff converging. Needles, gloves, a flurry of instructions. "On 3, 1, 2, 3, they chanted, lifting him onto a bed. A nurse cut away his blood-soaked shirt, assessing the bullet wound with brisk efficiency. "Sir, can you hear me?" asked a young doctor, pressing gauze against Leonard's side. "We're going to run some tests, but you'll need surgery if there's bone damage or internal bleeding." Leonard gave a slight nod. His throat felt too dry to speak. The world around him flickered in harsh overhead lights and the stench of antiseptic. Another wave of dizziness swept over him. When he next surfaced to awareness, he was in a curtained area. The voices were calmer now, less urgent. Toby and Chloe's anxious faces peered from behind a nurse. They were disheveled, Toby's bruised cheek swollen, Chloe's eyes rimmed red from crying. "Mr. Collins," Chloe whispered, "are you okay?" Leonard tried a reassuring smile, though it probably came out as a grimace. "I'll live." An unexpected voice cut in from behind. "Leonard? Oh God, what happened?" He shifted his head to see Christopher and Rebecca hurrying over. They must have rushed in the moment they heard he'd been shot. Christopher's normally composed face looked pale with worry, and Rebecca hovered, wringing her hands. "Dad," Christopher said, voice tight. "When the hospital called, we thought—" Leonard mustered a pained chuckle. "I'm not that easy to get rid of." A nurse shooed them aside politely. "We need to prep him for scans, but you can stay in the waiting room." Toby glanced down at his own bruised knuckles. "We're so sorry, sir. If we hadn't gone back—" Leonard cut him off softly. "Don't you dare apologize. You needed your things. Those thugs, this isn't your fault." Before anyone could respond, a wheelchair clattered up. Marina, hobbling on a cast and nursed by a staff member, appeared. Her eyes widened at the sight of Leonard's bandaged side. "Oh my God," she breathed, voice trembling. "Leonard, you did this protecting my kids." He tried to sit up, wincing. "It's not as bad as it looks," he lied. "Doc says I might need some surgery if my rib is fractured." Marina's eyes glistened. She struggled to keep steady on her crutches, determination overshadowing her own pain. "We owe you everything." Rebecca and Christopher exchanged surprised looks. This was the widow their father had mentioned helping. The tension thickened as they realized how deeply involved he'd become in protecting this family. Then, as if orchestrated by fate, Scarlett arrived. She burst in, breath shallow. Her gaze traveled from Toby to Chloe, then to Rebecca and Christopher, and finally settled on Leonard with horror. "Leonard, you got shot?" she managed, voice cracking. "Why? How?" One of the nurses stepped forward, eyes narrowing at the growing crowd. "He needs rest, folks. Let's give him space so we can run more tests." Scarlett turned to Marina, noticing the cast. Who are you?" Marina's knuckles tightened on the wheelchair handles. "My name is Marina Raymond. Leonard helped my children. He risked his life so Toby and Chloe wouldn't—" Her voice choked off with emotion. Scarlett swallowed, unable to hide her shock. She had known Leonard to be dependable, but never imagined he'd literally place himself in the line of fire for strangers. For a moment, she looked almost guilty aware that she hadn't stood by him in his own time of need. A nurse politely but firmly steered everyone away. "We'll update you as soon as possible," she promised. "Please wait in the family area." Leonard caught Christopher's eyes and nodded faintly. "Take Toby and Chloe. Let them know I'll be fine," he whispered, before the medical staff whisked him off for imaging. The last thing he saw was the mingled expressions of fear, gratitude, and confusion on the faces of those gathered. Pain throbbed in his side, but a steely resolve burned in his chest. This might be his hardest trial yet, but at least Toby and Chloe were safe. Hospital days blurred into nights for Leonard, his world reduced to a bed, an IV drip, and the rhythmic beep of monitoring machines. The bullet had fractured a rib and torn through muscle, but fortunately missed vital organs. Surgery to extract fragments and stabilize the rib was deemed necessary. Afterward, pain medications kept him groggy, but the relief from the worst of the agony was welcome. Over the next several days, visitors came and went. Christopher showed up each morning, carrying a thermos of coffee and an array of worried questions. Rebecca hovered in the afternoons, guilt etched in her face. He suspected she felt partially responsible for setting off the chain of family turmoil. Marina, on crutches and dressed in plain sweats, appeared each evening, her children in tow. Late on the third night, the overhead lights dimmed to signal quiet hours. Leonard was half awake, drifting in a haze, when the curtain ruffled softly and Marina entered, balancing on her crutches. "Couldn't sleep," she admitted, voice subdued. "Nurses said you might be awake." Leonard blinked the haze from his eyes. "They're right. Sleeping on these meds is interesting." He attempted a dry smile, then winced as pain throbbed in his side. Marina settled into the visitor's chair. "Mind if I stay for a bit?" He shook his head, oddly comforted by her presence. Outside, monitors beeped, and a faint overhead announcement crackled about a code somewhere else in the hospital. "How are Toby and Chloe?" he asked, voice raspy. A soft warmth lit Marina's face. "They're with a neighbor tonight, so I could come visit. Toby has a black eye, but no permanent damage. Chloe's shaken. But they're both so grateful." Leonard exhaled slowly. "I'm just sorry I couldn't prevent them from getting hurt at all." Marina leaned forward, eyes glistening with empathy. "You did more than I ever expected anyone to do, especially for near strangers. I owe you more than words can say." Silence settled. Leonard felt the comfort of not being alone in this sterile place. Something about Marina's presence steadied his heartbeat. He recalled little glimpses of her story, how her husband died in the military, how she'd been scraping by before her accident. "Tell me about your husband," Leonard said quietly, hoping to draw her away from talk of debts and gratitude. Marina's gaze drifted to the floor. "His name was Marcus. He enlisted in the Army at 19. We married young, had Toby and Chloe soon after. He was deployed overseas, got caught in an IED explosion. That was 2 years ago." Her voice wavered. "The Army offered a small pension, but it's been tangled in paperwork. Meanwhile, I was trying to keep us afloat, working odd jobs. Then I broke my leg on that rotten porch and everything spiraled." Leonard pictured it. A resilient woman, battered by life yet refusing to surrender. His chest ached with a complicated mixture of sympathy and admiration. "I'm sorry," he murmured. "You've been carrying a lot." Marina forced a shaky smile. "We manage. And now, thanks to you, Toby and Chloe aren't in that death trap apartment. They say your cabin feels like heaven in comparison." Leonard's thoughts flickered to the property he once shared with Scarlett and the kids' weekend barbecues, fishing trips, silly campfire songs, bittersweet memories. He took a breath, wincing at the pull in his rib cage. "I'm glad. They deserve a safe home." A lull fell. The hush of the hospital at night felt almost sacred. Marina's eyes flicked toward the bandage peeking above Leonard's hospital gown. "I hear you might be discharged soon, but you'll need rest. No heavy lifting, limited movement for a few weeks at least." He let out a weary sigh. "I'm not looking forward to a lonely motel room in this condition. Maybe I can check into a rehab center or something." Marina hesitated, then spoke softly. "Stay at the cabin. Toby and Chloe are there, and I'll be there too, once I'm fully released from my physical therapy schedule. You can heal in a real home environment." Leonard found himself nodding before he even realized it. The motel had been a grim refuge from heartbreak, but after this near-death experience, the notion of a quiet cabin felt like the only place to truly recover. "If you're sure I won't be intruding," he said, voice catching with emotion. Marina shook her head. "You saved my kids. You're the reason I can sleep at night. You're not an intrusion. You're practically family." Her cheeks reddened at the final words, as if she realized the implications. "I mean, we all care about you a lot," she amended. Leonard's heart twisted not with pain, but with something akin to hope. He extended his hand, gently brushing her fingertips. "Thank you," he whispered, "for letting me in." A tear escaped Marina's eye, and she squeezed his hand in silent camaraderie. Outside, the hospital lights hummed, and a clock ticked relentlessly toward midnight. In that small cubicle of battered hearts and healing bodies, 2 lonely souls found a flicker of connection that transcended mere chance. A week later, Leonard was discharged with a bundle of prescriptions and stern instructions from the doctor. No strenuous activity, minimal stress, lots of rest. Christopher came by to drive him from the hospital, while Toby and Chloe loaded the car with flowers and a half-dozen get-well-soon balloons from nurses who had grown fond of Leonard's gentle humor. Sunlight hit his face the moment he stepped outside, a welcome warmth compared to the sterile hospital corridors. He still felt weak, and his side twinged with every movement, but the relief of fresh air made him smile. "Ready?" Christopher asked, opening the passenger door. "I'll drive you to the cabin. Miss Raymond texted me that she has it set up for you." Leonard eased himself onto the seat, biting back a groan. "Yeah, let's go." The drive took them beyond the city's outskirts. The urban sprawl gave way to rolling hills and a winding road flanked by tall pines. As they neared the property, Leonard glimpsed the old wooden sign reading Collins Cabin, hand-painted years ago by a younger Rebecca. A swirl of nostalgia mixed with apprehension. This place once stood for family unity before everything fell apart. Christopher parked under a large oak, cut the engine. Toby and Chloe dashed out of their own car behind them, followed by Marina, who now moved with a single crutch for stability. She'd convinced her physical therapist to let her complete the remainder of her rehab at the cabin, thanks to Toby's help around the house. "Easy, Dad," Christopher murmured, helping Leonard step onto the gravel driveway. "Don't push yourself." Leonard took in the sight. The cabin's porch was swept clean, the windows open for ventilation. A new wind chime, shaped like tiny silver birds, tinkled in the breeze. Toby had evidently done some landscaping because the once overgrown flower beds were trimmed neatly. Marina approached, a shy smile curving her lips. "Welcome back," she said softly. "Your room's ready downstairs, so you don't have to climb any stairs yet." Leonard's chest warmed at the gesture. "This is more than I expected." He turned to Christopher, who held a suitcase. "You sure you're okay with me staying here for a while?" Christopher shrugged. "You own the place, Dad. I'm just glad you're not going back to that motel." A flicker of relief crossed his features. "Besides, looks like you'll have good company." Inside, the main living area glowed with afternoon light. The old stone fireplace stood at the center, with a worn couch and a rocking chair to one side. The kitchen, partially open concept, bustled with Toby rummaging through the fridge and Chloe humming as she set plates on the table. "I made a small lunch," Chloe announced, shooting Leonard a timid grin. "Just sandwiches and soup, but it might help build your strength." Leonard thanked her, touched by the effort. He settled onto the couch, carefully propping up a pillow against his ribs. Christopher quietly slipped away after a few minutes, promising to visit again soon. Toby served up bowls of fragrant chicken noodle soup, while Chloe poured lemonade into tall glasses. Marina maneuvered on her crutch, overseeing the meal like a watchful matriarch. As they ate, the atmosphere was startlingly peaceful. Birds chirped outside. A light breeze drifted in through the open window, carrying the scent of pine. Toby told stories of a friendly neighbor who lived a quarter-mile down the road, who'd shown him how to properly prune the rosebush in front. "Chloe's been trying her hand at cooking," Toby teased with a grin. "So far, we haven't burned the place down." Chloe nudged him, rolling her eyes in mock offense. "I follow YouTube recipes pretty well." Amid the easy banter, Leonard felt an unfamiliar sensation. Belonging. This small group had formed a makeshift family, bonded by shared hardship and gratitude. Though his side still ached, the intangible ache in his heart seemed to subside. Later that evening, Marina urged him to rest. Toby and Chloe retreated to their own room, previously a bunk room for visitors. Leonard's new bedroom was the cabin's old den, repurposed with a comfortable bed. Soft lamplight illuminated the rustic wood walls, and the faint chirp of crickets drifted through the open window. After everyone had settled, Leonard wandered outside onto the porch. He walked slowly, each step measured. The star-studded sky arched overhead, more dazzling than he remembered. A sense of calm blanketed the property. He heard the gentle tap of crutches. Marina joined him, carefully easing into a wooden chair. Her cast was off, replaced by a brace for support. She gazed across the darkened clearing, moonlight reflecting in her eyes. "I used to think our life was stuck in that dreadful apartment," she murmured. I never imagined a place like this a second chance, maybe. Leonard inhaled, letting the crisp air fill his lungs. I wasn't sure I'd ever come back here after everything with Scarlett, but now it feels different, like it's not tied to those memories alone. Marina reached out, brushing her fingertips across his uninjured forearm. You've given me and my kids a new sense of safety. I hope we can give you something in return: peace, or belonging. His pulse quickened, a faint blush creeping over his cheeks. The cabin's porch lamp cast a warm glow across Marina's face, highlighting the softness in her expression. She looked at him with a mixture of gratitude and tentative hope. You already have, he said quietly. Then, with a small laugh, he added, I just need to figure out what to do with my life now, aside from lying on that couch watching daytime TV. Marina chuckled. We'll keep you too busy for that, I promise. Silence wrapped around them, comfortable and serene. Overhead, a shooting star arced across the sky, brief and brilliant. Leonard felt something stir deep within a renewed sense of purpose, or maybe the beginnings of a new dream. He wasn't certain, but for the first time in a long while, he believed in possibilities. They stayed like that for a while, listening to the crickets. Finally, exhaustion overtook Leonard's still healing body. He bid Marina goodnight, hobbling back inside. As he sank onto the bed, a subtle glow of contentment spread through him. The summer sun cast dappled patterns across the gravel driveway as Leonard Collins carefully eased himself out of his car. His side still ached from the gunshot wound, though now mostly healed, but the discomfort was less severe than before. He inhaled, savoring the evergreen scent drifting from the pines encircling the cabin. Waiting on the front porch, Marina Raymond leaned on her crutch, a cautious smile touching her lips. Hey, careful, she called, stepping forward. Doc said you still need rest. Leonard chuckled lightly. I'm working on it. Hard to stay still when your mind's spinning. It had been only a week since he was discharged from the hospital, yet it felt like a lifetime. In that short span, he'd made the decision to move out of his motel for good and stay full-time at this cabin. Part of him worried about the arrangement living here with Marina, Toby, and Chloe, but he also felt a deep, unspoken gratitude for the warmth they provided. Inside, the living room hummed with casual activity. Toby peered at a laptop on the coffee table, trying to fill out some online summer school forms. Chloe was in the kitchen, humming while pouring fresh lemonade into glasses. Mr. Collins, Toby said, glancing up. Mom got a bunch of new paperwork today about her pension. Something about verifying your address as a caretaker? Marina's cheeks colored as she set aside her crutch. The social worker said my accident and medical bills might qualify me for extended benefits. They just need proof I have stable housing, and I mentioned your cabin. Leonard nodded, scanning the neat stack of forms on the dining table. All right, we'll sort it out, he said gently. No rush. It was almost bizarre just weeks ago. The cabin stood empty, a lonely symbol of his shattered marriage. Now, it pulsed with life. Toby's laughter, Chloe's chatter, Marina's quiet determination. They moved about the space as though they'd lived here forever, yet it still felt like an unspoken miracle that they were all together. A knock on the door startled him from his thoughts. He opened it to find Christopher and Rebecca, both bearing smiles and a bag of groceries. Christopher raised an eyebrow at Toby's laptop. You guys having a study group? Something like that, Toby answered, smiling wryly. I'm behind on a few subjects, so I'm trying to catch up. Rebecca set the grocery bag on the counter. Dad, you're looking better, she remarked, noticing his posture was more upright. Still taking it easy, I hope? Leonard shot her a playful glare. Everyone's on my case about that. Relax, Nurse Rebecca. A ripple of laughter loosened the atmosphere. Over a quick lunch, simple sandwiches, and Chloe's lemonade, Christopher noted how different Leonard seemed. Lighter, calmer. Leonard acknowledged it in small ways. His grin came easier, and the lines of worry on his brow had softened. Still, an undercurrent of tension lingered. Whenever Toby or Chloe mentioned household or family, Leonard felt the faint sting of unfinished business with Scarlett. The looming divorce hovered at the back of his mind, an unresolved chord in an otherwise harmonious melody. Eventually, Christopher and Rebecca made their farewells. Before leaving, Rebecca pulled Leonard aside. "Dad," she began quietly, "about Mom. She's been pressing me for updates. Are you going to finalize the divorce soon?" Leonard's jaw tightened. "Yes, I need to talk to her face to face. Clear out details, sign papers, all of it." Rebecca nodded, looking uneasy. "She's anxious, I think, but also I don't know, hurt, confused." He offered a resigned shrug. "I'm not sure what she expected after that kind of betrayal. Anyway, we'll handle it." After they left, Leonard returned to the living room, feeling Marina's curious gaze. "Everything okay?" He settled onto the couch. "Scarlett's pressing for the final steps. I can't ignore it much longer." A flicker of concern shadowed Marina's features. She lowered her voice to avoid Toby and Chloe overhearing. "If you need privacy or time away from us to deal with that, it's all right." Leonard gently took her hand, giving it a reassuring squeeze. "We're in this together," he said, voice soft but firm. "And I want to be here with you with the kids." For a moment, her eyes shone with relief. Outside, birds called from the treetops, and the gentle hush of the surrounding forest lent an air of serenity. In that stillness, Leonard felt, more than ever, that this unlikely living arrangement had become a genuine haven, one he wasn't ready to lose. He closed his eyes, inhaling the faint aroma of pine and lemonade. Whether or not Scarlett would cooperate with a peaceful divorce remained to be seen. But for now, life under one roof, this roof felt unexpectedly right. Late afternoon light streamed through the tall pines when a sleek black sedan pulled into the cabin's driveway, sending gravel skittering. Scarlett Collins stepped out, sunglasses masking her eyes, her posture tense. She wore a tailored blouse and skirt that seemed out of place amidst the rustic scenery. Leonard was on the porch, reading over some financial documents for Marina. The moment he saw Scarlett approach, he stood, exhaling slowly. "Scarlett," he greeted, voice taut. "I thought we agreed on a meeting in town." Scarlett shrugged, forcing a thin smile. "I figured it'd be easier if I came here. Besides, your phone's been going straight to voicemail for days." She offered a glance toward the open cabin door. "So this is where you've been." Before Leonard could respond, Marina emerged behind him, supporting herself on a single crutch. She gave Scarlett a polite nod. "Hello? You must be Scarlett." The words were cordial, but an unspoken tension crackled in the air. Scarlett sized up Marina's crutch, then flicked her gaze at Leonard. "So you've been taking care of her?" Her tone held a subtle note of jealousy. Marina's cheeks colored. "Leonard has been kind to my children and me, yes. We were in a difficult spot." Leonard cleared his throat, stepping between them diplomatically. "Scarlett, let's talk about the divorce details. That's why you're here, right?" Scarlett crossed her arms. "Yes, I have the initial papers, my lawyer's notes, and a few questions about dividing assets." She hesitated, glancing toward the driveway where Toby was unloading groceries from his mom's car, and Chloe was watering some potted plants. "What's going on here, Leonard? Are you living some kind of second life?" Marina bristled, but Leonard raised a calming hand. "It's not what you think. These kids needed help after their father passed, and Marina had an accident. I had a spare place. It's simple." Scarlett's eyes flashed with a mixture of hurt and sarcasm. "That's a kind of kindness you never showed me." An uncomfortable silence stretched. Finally, Toby politely stuck his head around the corner, noticed the tension, and quickly retreated. Leonard mustered an even tone. "I showed you 30 years of kindness, Scarlett, until I found out you'd been cheating on me for nearly that long." She flinched, cheeks reddening. We shouldn't talk about it here." Glancing at Marina, she added, "Could we get privacy?" Marina forced a small, understanding smile, stepping back inside. "Of course." Her shoulders drooped slightly as she retreated, leaving Leonard and Scarlett alone on the porch. The hush of the forest seemed louder than ever. "So," Scarlett said, drawing a few legal papers from a folder, "I wanted to finalize the spousal support terms. My attorney suggests—" Leonard's hand tightened. "I'm prepared to be fair, but I won't let you drag this out. Let's keep it simple. We sell the old house, split everything evenly. I keep the cabin." Scarlett glanced around. "You want to keep the cabin for your new life?" He nodded, jaw set. Yes. A wry grin curved her lips. Amazing. So you found your freedom, your redemption or whatever. Meanwhile, I'm the one who's lost everything. Leonard's heart panged with mingled anger and pity. Scarlett, you made your choices. You have to face the consequences. Now, do we have a deal? She hesitated, eyes flicking toward the cabin where quiet voices of Toby and Chloe drifted through an open window. Fine, she finally said, voice resigned. I'll have my lawyer finalize the property split. Just don't shut me out from the kids, okay? Leonard blinked, confused. Rebecca and Christopher. They're adults. They can talk to you whenever they like. A sad smile tugged at Scarlett's lips. I know. I just never mind. She slid her sunglasses back on, the reflection hiding her eyes. I'll have the final paperwork drawn up and contact you soon. Without another word, she turned on her heel and headed back to her car. Leonard watched the dust trail behind the sedan as it disappeared down the driveway. He stood there for a moment, a tightness in his chest. Marina appeared at the doorway again, hesitant. Is everything all right? He let out a weary sigh. We've reached an agreement, I guess. She's not happy, but she's letting go. Marina studied his expression, then rested her free hand gently on his arm. I'm sorry it was so tense. Leonard leaned into her warmth for a second, grateful. At least it's almost over, he murmured, more to himself than to her, and we can focus on what's ahead. Inside, Toby and Chloe pretended not to overhear, but the relief on their faces was palpable. As the sun dipped below the pines, the cabin settled into an uneasy calm like the quiet after a distant thunderclap, uncertain if another storm might roll in. Nightfall came softly, blanketing the cabin in a hush broken only by the chirping of crickets and the occasional rustle of leaves. Most evenings, Leonard found himself reading on the porch or helping Toby and Chloe with chores. But tonight, his mind was too restless for easy distractions. He wandered outside, letting the moonlit air soothe him. A half-moon glowed overhead, silvering the treetops. Approaching footsteps announced Marina's presence. Couldn't sleep? She asked quietly, leaning her crutch against the railing before gingerly lowering herself onto a bench. Leonard shook his head, taking a seat beside her. Not after Scarlett's visit. Feels like there's an anvil on my chest. They lapsed into silence, the night sky heavy with stars. After a moment, Marina cleared her throat. I want you to know, she began, voice uncertain. I'm not trying to replace anyone in your life. I worry sometimes that... She trailed off, gripping her hands in her lap. Leonard turned, catching the flicker of worry in her eyes. Worry that you're just a rebound, he asked gently. Marina nodded, gaze drifting to the forest. This cabin, your divorce, your heartbreak, it's all so fresh. I don't want to be some temporary patch you'll regret later. Leonard reached out, resting a hand over hers. The warmth of her skin reminded him of how far he'd come from the cold emptiness of the motel. When I left Scarlett, I was furious, hurt. I couldn't see anything but betrayal. But you, Toby, and Chloe, you showed me there's still goodness out there. She bit her lip. But do you trust yourself to know the difference between kindness and love? It scares me that you might regret letting us in. He inhaled, the crisp night air filling his lungs. I'm not a man easily swayed by impulse. I loved Scarlett for 3 decades. It'll take time to sort through that. But I can tell you with certainty, I don't regret helping you, or being here. He paused, searching her face in the silver moonlight. I want to be with you, if you'll have me. But I also understand if you need time or worry about what people might say. Marina's eyes glistened. I do worry. About gossip, about how Toby and Chloe might handle it, about your kids, Christopher and Rebecca, seeing me as some homewrecker. Leonard sighed. Christopher's pretty open-minded, but Rebecca, she's still working through her own mistakes. She might be wary, but we can show her this isn't some reckless fling. Marina exhaled shakily. Leonard, I don't want to lose you either. She squeezed his hand, voice trembling. You made me and my children feel safe, like we belong. I haven't felt that in years. Since Marcus died, I never thought I could trust again. Then you came along. His heart throbbed with gratitude. Carefully, he lifted her hand and pressed a gentle kiss to her knuckles, a simple act, but laden with promise. "We'll face everything together," he whispered. They stayed like that, hands entwined, the hush of the forest enveloping them. Somewhere in the distance, a nightbird called, its plaintive note echoing through the trees. When they finally rose to head back inside, the tension in Leonard's chest felt lighter. Yes, the divorce was looming, the future uncertain, but he no longer felt like he was stumbling in darkness. For the first time, he was forging a path he truly believed in. A faint light glowed in the living room window. Toby and Chloe had likely retreated to bed, but a single lamp remained on near the couch. Leonard helped Marina inside, mindful of her braced leg. Softly, they parted ways in the hallway, she to her room, he to his. But before she closed the door, Marina paused. "Leonard," she said, voice tender, "thank you for everything." He managed a quiet smile. "Thank you," he echoed. "Sweet dreams." The door clicked shut, leaving him to his own swirling thoughts. Exhaustion claimed him soon, though, and as he drifted to sleep, a fragile hope stirred like the moonlight streaming in through the curtains, illuminating a future he never expected to find. Late the following Saturday morning, a flurry of voices filled the cabin. Christopher and Rebecca had arrived to check on Leonard. Meanwhile, Toby and Chloe buzzed around, excitedly prepping a small lunch. The table was set with mismatched plates and cups, a bright flower centerpiece that Chloe had arranged. Marina was in the kitchen, stirring a pot of vegetable soup, occasionally wincing from lingering pain in her leg. Leonard hovered close, offering to chop ingredients. Despite their budding closeness, they maintained a friendly, unassuming air around Christopher and Rebecca, cautious, but not secretive. Eventually, they all gathered around the table. Toby passed the soup bowls, and Rebecca poured cold water into everyone's glasses. "So, Dad," Christopher said, eyeing Leonard carefully. "Any news about the divorce timeline?" Leonard exhaled, nodding. "Scarlett came by. We discussed splitting assets. It's moving along." He kept his tone measured, aware that Toby and Chloe were listening and might not be fully comfortable with the topic. A flicker of concern passed over Rebecca's features. "I'm just worried you're rushing things." Marina shot Leonard a glance, about to speak, but held back politely. Toby fiddled with his fork, sensing the shift in tension. "I'm not rushing," Leonard replied evenly. "This is something that should have happened long ago. And I'm not changing my mind." Rebecca sighed, glancing around the cabin's cozy interior. "Dad, I see how you are with Marina, Toby, and Chloe. It's sweet, but I can't help feeling uneasy. Are you sure you're not just replacing what you lost with something convenient?" An awkward hush dropped over the table. Toby looked down, cheeks reddening. Chloe focused on her soup as though it were the most fascinating meal in the world. Marina cleared her throat softly. "I understand your worry," she said gently, meeting Rebecca's gaze. "But nothing about this is convenient. Leonard's had every reason to walk away from our troubles. Instead, he chose to help." Rebecca nodded, somewhat abashed. "I know. I'm sorry if I sound harsh. I've made mistakes too, and I'm the last person to judge. I just want Dad to be sure." Leonard reached across the table, giving Rebecca's hand a reassuring squeeze. "I appreciate the concern, but I'm not the same man who left home in a rage. My priorities have changed." Christopher, who had been silent, cleared his throat. "Guess that leaves us to adapt." He turned to Toby and Chloe. "You guys okay out here in the middle of nowhere?" Toby cracked a smile. "It's definitely quieter than the city, but after everything that happened, I'll take quiet any day." Chloe nodded, a hint of a grin touching her lips. "We actually have neighbors who drop by sometimes with fresh fruit. It's nice. Peaceful." The conversation drifted into lighter territory. Toby's upcoming driver's permit test, Chloe's interest in a local 4-H club that a neighbor had mentioned, and Christopher's new job interview in the city. Bit by bit, the tension ebbed, replaced by cautious optimism. After lunch, the group drifted outside. A bright, cloudless sky arched overhead, and warm sunlight lit the yard. Christopher and Toby wandered to the side of the cabin, discussing possible improvements to the porch. Rebecca lingered by a flowering bush, quietly admiring the blossoms with Chloe. Marina and Leonard found themselves alone near the porch steps. She gently steadied herself on her crutch, leaning close to whisper, "How do you think that went?" Leonard gave a soft laugh. Could have been worse. At least no one stormed off. Marina's shoulders relaxed. "I'm glad. I worried Toby and Chloe might feel overshadowed or judged, but it seems we all managed." Leonard turned his gaze to Toby and Christopher, who were now laughing about some inside joke. "There's a sense of calm here," he mused. "But I can't ignore the fact that something bigger might be coming." He thought of Scarlett's final settlement, or the whisperings of neighbors who might see him as the father who abandoned his wife. And then there was Grant, the name Scarlett had mentioned in passing, a presence that could re-emerge at any time. Marina laid a hand gently on his arm. "We'll face it together, remember?" He smiled down at her, grateful. In the distance, Rebecca gestured for them to join her by the flower beds. Toby and Chloe teased Christopher into trying out a short jog along the tree line. The laughter carried on the breeze, forging a fragile bond between the old family and the new. Yet, as the day wore on, a subtle tension like an impending storm settled into Leonard's chest. He felt the weight of unfinished chapters, lingering just out of sight. For now, though, he focused on the warmth of the sun and the genuine smiles of those around him. Scarlett Collins leaned back on her living room couch, cell phone clutched to her ear. Outside the window, dusk settled in, casting elongated shadows across the suburban street. A single lamp glowed beside her, revealing a scattered stack of divorce paperwork on the coffee table. She stared blankly at the pages until an unexpected ring jolted her from her thoughts. "Hello?" she said, pressing the phone against her ear. A raspy male voice, familiar yet distant, filtered through the speaker. Grant Miller. Her heart lurched at the sound. She hadn't heard from him in what felt like ages, at least not directly. There'd been fleeting messages, but nothing like this. "Scarlett," Grant began, voice tinged with both relief and tension. "It's been a while. I hope this isn't a bad time." Scarlett inhaled, mind racing. "No, it's fine," she lied, ignoring the divorce forms glaring at her. "Why are you calling?" Grant hesitated, then exhaled audibly. "I lost my wife. She passed a few weeks ago, cancer. I'm sorry I didn't contact you earlier." A pang of guilt and sorrow flickered inside Scarlett. She remembered glimpses of Grant's wife at some distant teachers' conference, a fragile bird-like woman who disapproved of Grant's carefree nature. "I'm so sorry," she whispered. How are you coping?" He gave a humorless chuckle. "Not great, but it made me realize how short life is. All these years we kept our relationship hidden, only seeing each other during the conferences or those secret weekends. We used to say it was just our escape." "Remember?" Scarlett felt her chest tighten, memories flooding back. The clandestine meetings, the adrenaline of stolen moments. "I remember," she admitted quietly. 27 years, right? 27, Grant confirmed. "Look, I'm tired of hiding. I want to see you properly. Now that circumstances have changed, we don't have to sneak around anymore." Scarlett's hand trembled on the phone. For nearly 3 decades, she'd told herself it was just an annual fling, a dash of excitement to break the monotony of her married life with Leonard. But now, with Leonard pursuing a divorce and Grant suddenly freed by widowhood, everything felt uncomfortably real. "Grant," she said softly, "I'm in the middle of divorcing Leonard. My kids, Rebecca and Christopher, they're grown, but they're dealing with their own troubles. And I'm not sure about anything anymore." Grant's voice gentled. "I understand. But we've dreamed about this, haven't we? Being together without the guilt or the fear of being caught. We can finally be open." For a moment, Scarlett recalled the heart-pounding thrill whenever she heard his booming laugh at the teacher conventions, how she'd felt alive, important even. But a creeping doubt gnawed at her. Have I destroyed my entire family for a fling that was never supposed to go public? "Just think about it," Grant coaxed. "I'm visiting your city next week. Let's meet. We can talk." Scarlett closed her eyes. The prospect tugged at old desires and new apprehensions. "All right," she murmured at length. "We'll meet. Call me when you're in town." They ended the call. Scarlett set her phone aside and stared at the divorce papers again. The irony stung. For years, Leonard had been her stable husband at home while Grant provided the exhilarating secret. Now Leonard was gone, and Grant wanted something real. "What do I even want?" she thought, the silence of the house pressing in. She glanced at a framed photo of Christopher and Rebecca from years ago, the edges dusty from neglect. Guilt twisted in her gut. She'd turned everyone's lives upside down for the sake of excitement. If she embraced Grant publicly now, would it prove she'd never truly loved Leonard? Or was it a path to genuine happiness? Scarlett stood up, pacing the living room. In the quiet, she heard the faint hum of the air conditioner. Her heart pounded with a mix of fear and anticipation. 27 years of secret rendezvous might become something permanent. But was that thrilling or simply hollow? She didn't know yet. All she knew was that Grant was coming, and she couldn't avoid confronting what they'd done. The thought made her stomach churn. She grabbed a glass of water from the kitchen, sipping it with trembling hands. Upstairs, the bedroom she used to share with Leonard remained half empty, his belongings mostly removed. The emptiness reflected her own uncertainty. Taking a last shaky breath, Scarlett resolved to meet Grant, but the question was whether she'd find liberation in his arms or the stark realization that their affair was never meant to be more than a hidden fantasy. Late afternoon sunlight slanted through the windows of Leonard's old suburban home. Dust motes sparkled in the beams as Leonard slowly pushed open the front door. He hadn't visited this place in weeks, not since he began living at the cabin full-time. Yet legal documents demanded certain original copies, which were apparently tucked away in a desk drawer. The house was eerily quiet, half-furnished. Scarlett had cleared out many items as they prepared to sell the property. Leonard's footsteps echoed against hardwood floors. He headed to the living room, once a cozy space with the sofa, TV, and framed family portraits. Now, it felt more like a shell of memories. "Leonard?" called a voice from upstairs. He froze. He'd been told Scarlett might not be here today. Confusion rippled through him. "Scarlett, I just came to pick up some old files. Why are you here?" Scarlett descended the staircase, her expression guarded. She wore a form-fitting blouse and jeans, hair styled more elaborately than usual. A faint perfume drifted through the air. "I could ask you the same," she said with a taut smile. "I was collecting some personal items from my dresser." Leonard nodded, determined to remain civil. "Fine. I'll be quick. I need the original mortgage papers, among other things." He made his way to the study, flipping on a lamp that cast a yellow glow over the partially emptied bookshelves. Scarlett followed, leaning against the doorframe. An awkward silence stretched. "How's your new life?" she asked, a hint of bitterness peeking through her casual tone. Leonard stiffened, but continued rummaging in a file drawer. "I'm recovering from the gunshot. Marina's kids are adjusting well. And I'm finalizing the divorce with you, so it's moving forward." Scarlett stepped closer. "You used to be so cold, Leonard. Now you're playing hero, saving a widow and her children. I never imagined this side of you." He slammed the drawer shut, eyes flashing with anger. "I'm not interested in discussing my personal growth with you right now. Let's keep this about the papers." She moved swiftly, placing a hand on his arm. "Look at me, Leonard. Don't you remember what we had? The years of passion, raising our kids, building a life." Her voice cracked. "It can't just vanish." Leonard's heart thudded. He recalled the betrayal that had shattered his trust, that overshadowed their entire marriage. "Scarlett, you destroyed it by carrying on a secret affair for almost 3 decades. Let's not rewrite history." She swallowed hard. "I know I did wrong, but do we have to throw away everything? Couldn't we maybe start over?" Her fingers curled into his sleeve, eyes glistening with desperation. Leonard felt a surge of conflict. He'd once loved Scarlett fiercely, believed she was his partner for life. Now the memory of her affair with Grant made his stomach churn. Yet here she was, looking at him like old times, her perfume stirring recollections of nights they'd spent together. "Don't," he managed, stepping back. "Please." Scarlett's voice grew husky. "You sure? Remember how it felt, how we used to laugh, how I used to make you feel wanted?" She leaned forward, letting the curve of her body brush against him, hand sliding toward his shoulder. For a split second, Leonard wavered, old emotions sparking. But then, unbidden, images of Marina and her children flashed through his mind. Toby's grateful smile, Chloe's innocent trust, Marina's quiet strength at his bedside. He remembered how he'd found genuine comfort and renewal with them. The sense of betrayal he'd felt from Scarlett came crashing back. "No," he whispered, voice trembling with suppressed anger. He gently but firmly removed her hand. "That's over, Scarlett. My heart belongs elsewhere now." Her lips parted, eyes brimming with tears. "You can't say you don't feel anything for me." Leonard steadied himself. "What I feel is sadness for the time we shared and anger at your deceit. But love? That ended when I realized you'd never been truly faithful, only going through the motions while meeting Grant every year. Please let me go." Scarlett's composure shattered. She let out a bitter laugh, tears streaking her cheeks. "Fine. You've changed too much anyway. She hesitated, a flicker of guilt crossing her face. "Grant's back in my life. He wants me now, openly. I'm meeting him soon." Leonard's chest constricted. So that was it, she wanted to rekindle something before fully committing to Grant. One last fling for old time's sake? The thought revolted him, even as it brought a twinge of pity for her confusion. "I wish you well," he said quietly, retrieving the stack of files. "Sign the papers. Let's finish this." Scarlett's shoulders sagged. "Yes, we'll finish. But it doesn't mean I won't regret what we lost." Without further words, Leonard brushed past her, heading toward the door. Each step away from that living room felt like shedding an old, stifling skin. Behind him, Scarlett remained rooted in place, tears slipping silently down her face. The emptiness of the house pressed in on them both, a painful testament to the collapse of what once was. Late evening light bathed the cabin's front yard in warm gold, illuminating rows of wildflowers along the fence. Leonard stepped out of his car and paused, startled by what he saw. Tiny white fairy lights strung between the pines, forming a whimsical arch near the porch. A soft glow flickered beyond, presumably from candles. He made his way closer, noticing Toby kneeling by a lantern to check the batteries, and Chloe fussing with a cluster of pink roses set in a tall vase. Both looked up as he approached. "Hey, Mr. Collins," Toby said with a mischievous grin. "Don't come too close yet. We're not done decorating." Chloe bounced on her toes, excited. "We're setting up something special for Mom, for both of you, actually." Leonard's heart thudded. "You two did all this?" He glanced around, taking in the meticulously arranged flowers, the soft glow of candles in glass holders. A gentle breeze stirred the strings of lights, making them sway like fireflies in the dusk. Toby chuckled. "We had a little help from a neighbor who loaned us the lights. But yeah, we wanted to do something nice." Just then, Marina appeared at the cabin door, wearing a flowy summer dress Leonard hadn't seen before. She looked momentarily flustered, spotting Leonard outside. "Oh, you're back," she said, her cheeks tinged pink. She cast Toby and Chloe a look that clearly said we were supposed to be done before he arrived. "Should we, give you two some time?" Toby asked with a teasing note. Chloe giggled, grabbing her brother's hand, and they disappeared around the side of the cabin. Leonard watched them go, then turned to Marina. "What's all this?" he asked softly, stepping toward the warmly lit display. Marina clasped her hands together, a mix of nervousness and delight shining in her eyes. "They insisted on doing something romantic. I didn't expect you home so soon, but—" She trailed off, indicating the modest arrangement of lights and flowers. "I guess they want us to have a peaceful evening." Leonard felt warmth bloom in his chest. His gaze flicked to the sky, where dusk had deepened to a gentle lavender hue. The atmosphere was almost magical. He drew in a steadying breath, recalling the swirl of recent events. Scarlett's final attempt to seduce him, the confirmation that he no longer loved her, and the realization that his heart belonged fully to the life he'd found here. "Marina," he began, voice quivering slightly. I have something I've been wanting to talk to you about." She looked up, eyes full of curiosity. Yes? He inhaled again, forcing calm into his pounding heart. The flicker of candlelight danced across her features, revealing both tenderness and apprehension. I've spent my entire life thinking marriage was forever, only to be blindsided. And then I met you, someone who reminded me that there's hope after heartbreak. He took her hands gently. I can't imagine walking away from what we have here, from Toby and Chloe, from you. Marina's breath caught. Her fingers twitched in his grip, as if she already sensed what was coming. Leonard dropped to one knee, not in a grand flourish, but in a quiet, earnest gesture. He winced slightly from the lingering ache in his side, but he pressed on. I know it might seem fast, he said, voice soft yet determined. But I'm certain. I want to share my life with you, not just in passing. Will you marry me, Marina? A hush blanketed the yard. The crickets seemed to hold their chirps for a moment. Marina's eyes brimmed with tears, hand lifting to her mouth. Leonard, she whispered, trembling. Yes, I want to, but are you sure? With the divorce not yet fully finalized, with everything— He squeezed her hands. I'm sure. The divorce is a formality now. My heart left that marriage the day I learned the truth. You and your kids, you've become my family. Please, say yes. Tears slipped down her cheeks as a radiant smile broke through. Yes, she breathed. Yes, Leonard, I'll marry you. He rose, pulling her into a gentle hug, both of them mindful of their lingering injuries, her leg, his side, but neither caring at that moment. The flickering candles cast dancing shadows around them, while the fairy lights glimmered overhead. Suddenly, Toby and Chloe burst around the corner, unable to contain themselves. They raced forward, Chloe squealing in delight, Toby pumping a fist in the air. I knew it, Toby shouted, a wide grin on his face. Finally? Marina laughed through her tears, beckoning them over. They group-hugged, an impromptu circle of joy under the evening sky. Leonard's heart felt like it might burst from happiness. For a moment, he let himself forget every worry, Scarlett, the divorce, Grant, and simply basked in the love they shared here and now. Rain drummed against the window of a cozy cafe where Rebecca and Christopher sat opposite their mother. Scarlett had summoned them to talk privately, the tension in her request hinting something big was afoot. Now, as thunder rumbled in the distance, she stirred a latte absently, eyes distant. Mom, Christopher prodded gently. What's going on? You said there was news? Scarlett set her spoon aside, fingers tapping the edge of her cup. I made a decision, she began, glancing between her son and daughter. Grant came back into my life. You both know him, sort of. The man She paused, swallowing. The man I was involved with behind your father's back. Rebecca's jaw tightened, still carrying the sting of her own marital betrayal. But she forced a calm tone. Yes. So what's happening? Scarlett inhaled, steeling herself. Grant's wife died recently. He wants to be with me, no more hiding. He's invited me to travel with him, to see if we can build a real relationship. A flicker of guilt ghosted across her features. I'm going, at least for now. Christopher exchanged a wary look with Rebecca. You're leaving town? For how long? A faint shrug rippled Scarlett's shoulders. I'm not sure. We might stay near the coast or maybe wander for a bit. He's got some savings and I still have a partial settlement from the divorce. Rebecca's brow furrowed. Mom, are you sure this isn't just another rush of excitement? What if it falls apart? Scarlett pressed her lips thin, gazing at the swirling latte foam. For 27 years, I told myself Grant was just an escape. But deep down, there was something I wanted: freedom. A thrill. Maybe it's foolish, but I need to find out if there's more to it. If we can be more than a hidden fling. Silence descended as the cafe chatter buzzed around them. Finally, Christopher cleared his throat. Look, if you think it'll make you happy, I can't stop you. But Dad's finalizing everything with the lawyers. Are you aware that he trailed off, uncertain how to phrase it. Scarlett nodded stiffly. Yes, I'm aware he and Marina plan to marry. We're both moving on, I suppose. She tried to inject a note of bravado into her voice, but couldn't quite hide her sadness. Anyway, I'm leaving in a few days. Grant has a flight booked for us. Rebecca's eyes flickered with concern. Mom, I hope you're not just— Please be safe. If Grant's great for you, then okay. But remember everything that happened with Dad, don't repeat the same mistakes. Scarlett managed a thin smile, tears glistening in her eyes. I know. I've hurt you and your father enough. I'm trying to do something right for myself now, even if it seems reckless. I love you both, never doubt that. Christopher leaned forward, resting a comforting hand on his mother's arm. We love you too, despite everything. A tear slipped down Scarlett's cheek, quickly brushed away. The overhead lights cast a soft glow over their small table, the rain outside intensifying. For a moment, the three of them formed a fragile circle of acceptance, acknowledging that the Collins family they once knew had irrevocably changed. Don't be a stranger, okay? Rebecca said quietly. If you or Grant settle somewhere, call us. Let us know you're okay. Scarlett nodded, voice catching. I will. They finished their drinks, an air of finality lingering. Outside, the rain let up enough for them to dash to the parking lot. Scarlett hesitated by her car, turning back to her children. She embraced each of them fiercely, a tangle of regrets and hope in her watery smile. Might be the last time I see you for a while, she murmured. Christopher tried to maintain a stoic expression, though his eyes wavered. We'll be here. Rebecca, biting her lip, managed a small wave. Take care, Mom. Scarlett slipped into her sedan, tears blurring her vision. As she drove away, the city lights blurred past, mirroring the swirl of emotions in her chest. Part of her still questioned whether she was chasing a hollow dream. Another part insisted she had to try, there was no turning back. In the rearview mirror, she saw her children standing together, concern etched on their faces. I'm sorry, she thought silently, but I have to see this through. Thunder rumbled once more, a symbolic echo of the internal storm she'd weathered for so long. She pressed down on the accelerator, the comforting hum of the engine beneath her. The future with Grant might hold love or heartbreak she truly didn't know. But as she left the cafe behind, a bittersweet feeling welled up. She whispered a soft goodbye to the life she once knew, bracing herself for whatever lay ahead. The early light of dawn spilled over the cabin's yard, painting the grass in shades of gold and green. Leonard Collins stood on the back porch, dressed in a crisp beige suit he'd never expected to wear again, certainly not for a wedding, his own wedding. The collar felt a bit tight, but his heart swelled with anticipation rather than nerves. Ahead of him, Toby and Chloe scurried around the makeshift altar they'd created near a flowering arch of vines and blossoms. A handful of simple chairs formed two neat rows, and a small table off to the side held coffee, pastries, and lemonade for later. Birds twittered overhead as if celebrating the big day. Dad, Christopher called softly, approaching in a button-down shirt. You doing okay? Leonard exhaled a slow breath. Better than okay. I'm grateful. He cast his gaze over the lawn where a few guests were gathering, mostly neighbors and a couple of longtime friends. At the far side, he glimpsed Rebecca in a floral dress, quietly checking on seating arrangements. Brandon Thompson, Rebecca's husband, hovered at her side. Though he looked slightly uncomfortable, he wore a supportive smile. All eyes turned toward the cabin's front door as Marina Raymond emerged, flanked by Chloe, who was fussing over her mother's simple white gown. Marina's cast and crutch were long gone. She walked with a slight limp, but her joy was radiant enough to outshine any lingering discomfort. Her curly brown hair framed her face, and she wore a single wildflower in it, matching the bouquet Chloe held. The hush that settled as Marina approached was broken only by Toby's hushed instruction he'd taken charge of the tiny MP3 player providing soft background music. Leonard couldn't tear his eyes away from Marina. She looked serene, a quiet confidence in her smile. At the makeshift altar, the officiant, a friendly local pastor, welcomed everyone with a warm nod. Christopher took a seat beside Rebecca, who gave him a brief grin. Toby and Chloe stood close, excitement nearly bubbling over. Leonard reached for Marina's hands, and the morning sun illuminated her face in a gentle glow. We gather here, the pastor began softly, in this intimate setting to celebrate a new beginning for Leonard and Marina. Leonard's mind flicked through everything that had brought them here. The heartbreak of Scarlett's betrayal, The chance meeting with Toby, the violence that nearly cost him his life, and the blossoming love that followed. As he held Marina's hands, each moment felt woven into something profoundly right. The vows were simple, heartfelt. Leonard promised to stand by Marina and her children, to protect them and cherish their shared future. Marina returned the promise, voice trembling with emotion, grateful that he'd shown her hope after losing her first husband. Toby and Chloe beamed, tears shining in Chloe's eyes. When the pastor pronounced them husband and wife, a gentle whoop broke from Toby, followed by quiet applause from the guests. Leonard slipped a modest silver band onto Marina's finger, and she did the same with a matching one for him. They sealed it with a tender kiss, unhurried, full of promise. The small group erupted in laughter and congratulatory hugs. Rebecca dabbed her eyes, remembering how much her father had suffered and how far they had all come. Even Brandon offered Leonard a handshake and a pat on the back, a silent acknowledgement that maybe second chances could be real. "To the bride and groom," Christopher announced with a grin, raising a glass of lemonade. Everyone joined the toast. A gentle breeze ruffled the wildflowers, carrying the scent of pine and fresh earth. In that moment, standing in the sunlight with a new ring on his finger, Leonard felt an unburdened happiness he hadn't known in years. The Morning Garden wedding was perfect, humble, loving, free of the ghosts of the past. A few days after the wedding, the cabin bustled with calm contentment. Leonard and Marina lounged on the porch, sipping sweet tea Toby had prepared. Christopher and Rebecca were due to visit soon, and Chloe had stepped outside to feed the neighbors' chickens. The hush of midday crickets lulled them into a pleasant daze. Then a car rumbled up the driveway. Marina glanced at Leonard, eyebrow raised. "Expecting more visitors?" Leonard set his glass aside. Could be Christopher, or the neighbors. Yet the voice they heard outside was unmistakably Scarlett Collins. When she rounded the corner of the porch, a curious hush fell. Scarlett wore a casual blazer and jeans, looking a bit more relaxed than the last time she'd confronted Leonard. A flicker of conflicting emotions danced across her eyes as she took in the wedding band on Leonard's hand and the equally telling ring on Marina's. "Well," she said quietly, approaching the steps. "It's done, I see." Leonard rose, heart tensing. "Scarlett, didn't know you were back in town." She offered a guarded smile. "Briefly, I have some news if you can stand hearing it." Her gaze flickered to Marina, uncertain. "I'll keep this short." Marina hesitated but politely stood. "I'll go check on Toby." She gave Leonard a gentle squeeze on the arm before disappearing inside, offering Scarlett a subtle nod of acknowledgement. Once alone, Leonard folded his arms. "What's going on?" Scarlett drew a measured breath. "I've married Grant. We did it quietly, abroad. We've been traveling these last few weeks somewhere far from all this, trying to see if we truly fit together when it's not a secret." She paused, forcing a small laugh. "Turns out we do, mostly." Leonard let that sink in. "Congratulations, then," he said. Surprisingly, he meant it. An odd sensation of relief coursed through him like a final severing of the thread that had bound them. Scarlett's expression softened. I'm happy, but it still feels strange. We spent so many years in the shadows. Now it's real, and we're adjusting. Anyway, I came to let you know we plan to settle somewhere near the coast. Grant's finances can handle it. We won't be back often." Leonard exhaled, nodding slowly. "I hope you find peace there. You both deserve a shot at a normal life." Scarlett blinked, perhaps taken aback by his sincerity. "Thank you. And you too. I see you've moved on." She gestured at the ring on his finger, a faint smile tugging her lips. "Marina looks kind. And you look," she searched for the right word, "lighter." For a moment, the tension between them dissolved, replaced by two people acknowledging that their paths had irrevocably diverged. "I guess I just wanted closure," Scarlett continued softly. "We've both changed. Maybe it was inevitable." Leonard nodded, feeling a pang of wistful sadness. Yeah, maybe it was. She glanced around the porch, the potted plants, the cozy chairs. "This place suits you, you know. Quiet, comforting. I hope it stays that way." A hint of color rose in Leonard's cheeks. "I think it will." Scarlett stepped back toward her car. "Tell Rebecca and Christopher I said hello. They know about my marriage, but I'd appreciate a final farewell if they want. Her voice wobbled a bit, revealing the lingering emotions beneath her composure. I'll pass it on, Leonard said gently. Take care, Scarlett. She nodded, lingering a moment, then turned. Within a minute, her sedan disappeared down the driveway, raising small clouds of dust in its wake. Leonard stayed on the porch, arms resting on the wooden railing, gazing after her. He thought he might feel regret or anger. Instead, a measured calm settled over him. Scarlett had found a path imperfect, risky yet hers to claim, and he'd found his. There was nothing more to say. Inside, he heard Marina's voice, soft and reassuring as she spoke to Toby. Warmth pooled in his chest, contrasting with the short, tense exchange he'd just had. 2 separate loves, 2 separate endings. Perhaps this was how it had to be. He rejoined Marina and Toby in the living room, allowing the quiet satisfaction of his new life to wash away any lingering ghosts of the past. The next afternoon, an unexpected text arrived on Leonard's phone, Scarlett requesting a brief private meeting. He hesitated. Hadn't they reached closure already? But something in her tone felt unfinished. With Marina's gentle encouragement, he drove to a scenic overlook just outside town, a place he and Scarlett had once visited years ago for an anniversary picnic. When he pulled in, Scarlett was already there, standing by the guardrail that overlooked a rolling expanse of fields. She wore a light cardigan, her hair catching the breeze. A late afternoon sun bathed the landscape in amber hues. "Thanks for coming," she said, turning as he approached. "I promise this won't take long." Leonard studied her carefully. She seemed calm, but a trace of wistful melancholy lingered in her eyes. "All right, what's left to say?" Scarlett folded her arms across her chest, glancing at the horizon. "I needed one last look at this place, the place where we used to come for those sunset drives. Remember?" A rush of memories surfaced. The carefree days before children, or the early years with little Christopher and Rebecca chasing the twilight. "Yeah, I remember," he said quietly. She smiled, eyes shining. "I couldn't leave without acknowledging the good. We had plenty of it, alongside our mistakes." Leonard rested his hands on the guardrail, the metal warm from the sun. "We did," he admitted, voice softening. 30 years is a lot of life." Scarlett sighed, shoulders slumping. "And I threw it away. I know I said it before, but I'm sorry, Leonard. Sorry I lied to you for so long. Sorry I made you question everything. I wish I could take back the hurt." He inhaled the crisp air, letting her words settle. "I won't pretend it didn't break me. But I've learned I can heal. And yes, we had good times. I won't erase them." Scarlett's eyes brimmed with unshed tears. "I can't undo the past, but I can still own it. Thank you for giving me those years, for giving me our children. I hope you believe me when I say I did love you once." A gentle breeze stirred, rustling the tall grass below the overlook. Leonard gazed at her, and for the first time in a long while he saw only memories, a mixture of warmth and sorrow. "I believe you," he finally said. "I loved you too, but we changed, and that's okay." Scarlett blinked rapidly, tears escaping down her cheeks. She reached out, a tentative gesture, and Leonard met her halfway in a brief, compassionate embrace. Their shared history twined around them for a moment, a final goodbye to the life they once shared. Pulling back, Scarlett sniffed, offering a watery smile. "I should go. Grant's waiting. We leave tomorrow morning." She paused. "Tell Marina thanks for forgiving me enough to let me speak to you. She seems kind." A small nod from Leonard. "She is. Good luck, Scarlett." She turned away, heading for her car. Leonard watched her drive off, the setting sun reflecting on her rear windshield. As the engine faded, he realized a weight had lifted from his chest. No rancor, no festering bitterness, just acceptance, like setting down a heavy book after reading its final page. He lingered at the overlook a bit longer, letting the sky shift from gold to pink. Eventually, he returned to the cabin. Marina greeted him at the door, reading his expression like a question. "How did it go?" she asked quietly. He let out a measured breath, slipping an arm around her waist. "We said goodbye. Really said it this time. I think we're both free now." Marina rested her head against his shoulder, leading him inside where Toby and Chloe were arguing amiably over a board game. The cabin felt warm and alive, the new center of his world. He placed a gentle kiss on Marina's forehead. "That's the past," he murmured, voice resolute. "We have our future." Her smile, bright and unguarded, confirmed that was all either of them truly needed. Morning broke over the cabin with the gentle hush of a world waking up. Leonard stood on the back porch, cradling a mug of steaming coffee, gazing out at the dew-kissed meadow. The rising sun bathed the horizon in a soft glow of pink and orange. Footsteps approached behind him. Marina slipped an arm around his waist, leaning her head against his shoulder. "You're an early riser these days," she teased, inhaling the aroma of his coffee. "Everything all right?" Leonard smiled, taking a small sip, just appreciating how peaceful it is. He paused, glancing at her ring. "Every morning feels like a gift now." A crash of laughter echoed from inside. Toby burst out the door, half laughing, half chasing Chloe, who held a whisk dripping with pancake batter. Their playful banter reminded Leonard of the home he once tried to maintain with Scarlett, except this time it felt richer, more genuine, built on trust and honesty. "I'm making breakfast," Chloe announced with mock seriousness, brandishing the whisk. "But Toby keeps trying to taste the batter." Toby feigned a guilty shrug. "We need quality control, right, Mr. Collins or Dad?" Leonard grinned. "You're allowed to call me Dad if you want," he murmured. Toby shot him an appreciative smile. Marina's eyes danced with delight. "Keep your spatula away from that pancake mix, Toby," she mock-scolded, ushering them back into the kitchen. As they disappeared inside, the screen door banging softly behind them, Leonard let out a content sigh. He cast a glance down the driveway where Christopher and Rebecca were just arriving in Christopher's car. The siblings hopped out, wearing bright smiles. "Morning, Dad," Rebecca called, giving him a quick hug on the porch steps. Christopher followed suit. "We brought some groceries," Christopher said, holding up a bag. "And we have news." Marina motioned them all into the living room, where Toby and Chloe had set the small dining table for breakfast. The air brimmed with the scent of pancakes, bacon, and fresh coffee. Once everyone was settled, Rebecca nudged Brandon, who'd quietly come along to speak up. He cleared his throat awkwardly. Well, since we're all together," Brandon began, glancing at Rebecca for support. "We wanted to share that we're expecting a baby." A collective gasp of excitement swept around the table. Rebecca flushed, beaming as Christopher clapped loudly. Toby whistled and Chloe squealed. Leonard set his coffee down, heart swelling with pride and joy. "That's incredible," Leonard managed, eyes misty. "Congratulations, you two." Marina offered warm embraces all around, while Toby and Chloe peppered Rebecca and Brandon with questions about due dates and nursery plans. The moment brimmed with love and laughter, a far cry from the tumult that once shadowed their gatherings. Once the initial buzz calmed, Christopher grinned, pointing a playful finger at Toby. "You better keep that pancake batter safe. I suspect a baby's gonna want all the best treats once they're old enough." Toby laughed, spooning an extra dollop of whipped cream onto everyone's plates. Chloe served the pancakes, drizzling homemade berry sauce on top. Throughout the meal, conversation flowed easily, Leonard's old regrets replaced by optimism and Rebecca's past mistake overshadowed by her hopes for motherhood. A gentle morning breeze wafted in through the open windows, rustling the curtains. As plates were cleared and more coffee poured, Leonard caught Marina's gaze. She smiled softly, eyes reflecting the same gratitude he felt. Life had come full circle. He'd lost one marriage, but found a deeper love and a thriving family in the process. Eventually, they all moved to the porch, soaking in the sunshine. Christopher and Toby debated ideas for a deck extension, while Chloe listened intently. Brandon quietly asked Leonard for advice on fatherhood, and Rebecca joined in, still glowing with the promise of a new start. Marina slipped her hand into Leonard's. He returned the gesture, drawing her closer. The sky stretched endlessly above them, vibrant and clear, symbolizing the fresh chapter they'd all embraced. In that simple moment, surrounded by laughter, new beginnings, and unwavering support, Leonard felt a profound sense of peace. The past's shadows had scattered. The future lay wide open, no longer haunted by betrayal or doubt. "We did it," Marina whispered, her tone full of wonder. Leonard squeezed her hand. "Yeah," he agreed, voice thick with emotion. "We really did." They exchanged a tender smile, then turned to join the conversation swirling around them. The morning sun climbed higher, bathing the cabin and its inhabitants in warmth and hope. The final page of one story had closed, yet the next had already begun, filled with promise, love, and the simple, everyday miracles that made life worth living.